The regular meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is called to order at 6:01 p.m. on June 18th, 2019. Good evening, everybody. Seated in front of you this evening from my left to your right are Director Jackie Mosqueda-Jones, Director Kelsey Dawson-Walton, Director Jessica Craig, myself, Director Mike Ostafi, Director Tanya Simons, Director Heather Douglas, and Interim Superintendent Dr. James Bout. Again, welcome everybody. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Director Douglas, will you please lead us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Douglas. And now I will ask Dr. Bout to lead this evening's retiree recognition program. Dr. Bout?
Thank you, Chair Ostafi. The district has implemented a new way to recognize retirees this year using our regular school board meetings to do so. And tonight is our third recognition of the year. We had one in December, one in May, and now in June. Between January and May of this year, 65 individuals across the district announced that they would be either retired during that time period or be retiring at the end of that time period. And those individuals represent over 1,700 years of service to the district. Invitations were sent to all retirees to either attend May or June. We had a fairly large contingency in May, and tonight we have two. And their families and friends that have showed up tonight. So thank you for coming tonight. Before I ask the retirees to come forward, I'm going to share a couple comments I shared in May to the larger group, and then one quote with you. You know, often the case is the number of years of service gets recognized, 1,700 years with those 65 employees. But I'd submit to you, retirees and those that are viewing tonight and the audience, that the contribution the retirees made to the students, the many generations of students that have walked through the schoolhouse door, outweigh the years of service by far. Retirees, when you decided to work in a school district, you chose a job of the heart, and we're glad that said job was in this district. Finally, I want to leave you with a quote from Ben Franklin, who said, "Well done is better than well said." So on behalf of the district and the school board, well done, retirees, and best wishes on the next leg of your life journey. At this time, board members, if you would come down in front, and retirees, I'm going to read your name and your last position in the district, and then have you come forward, shake hands with the board members, and we have a district gift to give you also this evening. Oh, and before I forget, retirees, don't exit the room real quickly. I know Barb Olson will want to take a picture, and she's going to want to take that before you exit for the evening. So, with that in mind, we'll start with Susan Benson first, AESP Enrollment Center. Susan? And our second retiree this evening, Cheryl Bilodeau. Cheryl? I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry, Cheryl, I forgot to mention your job. You know, when you get old like me, I'm older than you are, you can get forgetful. Cheryl was a math teacher in her last position at Brooklyn Middle School. Thank you, Cheryl. So. Again, retirees, thank you for being here this evening, and congratulations. And I'm going to turn you over to Barb. Did she embarrass her now?
Enjoy your retirement.
Did she say something? Did daughter say something? Oh, the grandma did.
Mike,
And I think there's been a mistake because there's another retiree or a re-retiree that's going on this evening, or very quickly. Our own Dr. Jim Bauk, our interim superintendent, is going back to hanging out at the lake and with his grandkids after graciously stepping in to help us through last year, continue moving us forward and helping with the transition to new leadership. So I wanted to say thank you very much. You made my life much easier on a personal basis. And again, I thank you very much for your hard work and effort in stepping in and helping move us forward. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Can we all say something?
Yeah, if you want to say something else.
Okay. Jim, I just have to tell you that I'm really going to miss you. And as a new board member, I really appreciate you taking me under your wing and really providing some guidance with me and to be the most effective board member I can. And I think that I really believe that the time you've been at Osseo is truly meant to be. I think you've set us up for success, and I wish you well, and we hope to be seeing you around sometimes, at least. Maybe we'll all come to your cabin and surprise you.
That will not feel like retirement. Thank you,
And
Kelsey.
I would also like to say something. Jim, one of the first times that you and I had a discussion, you talked about how leadership is a calling for you. And I just want to say that I have seen that calling in you, and I've seen you live out that calling, and your gracious servant leadership style is one that many of us, I believe, aspire to. So thank you for showing that with the grace, humility, and frustration, and all of the above. Thank you.
Thanks. That was very kind of you. Thanks, Jackie.
Well.
It's tough to beat, but thank you, Jim, for everything. Truly, honestly, you're going to be missed, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you and wish you well moving forward. So thank you.
And I just want to echo the comments as well. I just really appreciate as a new board member as well, just your guidance and your insight and your forthcomingness and your directness. I really have appreciated that, and I also really believe you've set us up for success, and I'm looking forward as you bring Corey on board to continue that success for us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Donna.
All right.
Well, I don't know if I can really say anything else besides thank you. Took all the good stuff. But thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Heather.
All right, now he's not getting away scot-free. I will now ask Dr. Bauk to lead this evening's, I'm sorry, I went backwards one step. Normally, it's someone else screwing up the order. I did that tonight. I'm sorry. Board members, in front of you is the agenda. Are there any other additions or changes to the agenda this evening? So is there a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? No, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 6-0, and the agenda is as stands. The next agenda item is the audience opportunity to address the school board. We have two speakers tonight. Let me read a brief statement. During audience opportunity to address the school board, I will call on each speaker who has submitted a speaker card. We ask the speakers keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or staff if follow-up is necessary. The complete guidelines for public participation are provided on the meeting materials table and on the school board section of the district website. When I call your name, please come to the microphone and state your topic, and also state whether or not you are a district resident. So we will start with Becky Hessman.
Again, I have this issue every time I come, which has been a lot this year, so.
Good evening, Becky.
Thank you, School Board Chair and School Board and Superintendent. We have been talking about the decision to reduce the special education resource ESP hours for next year for a while now. Teachers, parents, community members, ESPs have all presented reasons why this decision will have a negative impact on both students and staff. Through all of this, the main concern of the staff has been the negative impact less support in the classroom will have on all students. These are the people that are in the trenches working with the students day after day and year after year in many cases. Having an adult that a student can trust to be there for the support that they need, whether it's academic or behavioral, is important for their success. It's been stated that hiring 5 more resource teachers will help increase student achievement. Yet when those teachers can only teach a small number of students on a daily basis and don't have the ESP support in their rooms for the additional instructional support necessary for students to learn the material, or additional support to complete tests, or support with behavior strategies, student achievement will predictably decrease. We still believe that this decision was based on finances only and not on what is best for the students that we serve. When you make your final decision on the budget, please consider how this is really affecting student learning. It's very real, and there are no do-overs for kids. We also ask that the school board, when they make this decision, will follow through with keeping the district accountable for the decision. This will be very important. Please do what's right for all students in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Next on the list is Ms. Jill Hornbacher. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, school board members, and thank you for taking the time to hear from me this evening. My name is Jill Hornbacher. I am a 9-year resident at Maple Grove, as well as a proud parent of a Maple Grove Senior High School student athlete. I'm here tonight to request that you allow our community to proceed with a video replay scoreboard with or without school board funding for the Crimson Stadium. This request should not require a referendum. I have reached out to several of you on the school board in the past on this particular issue, and while I am pleased with your response and your considering including it as part of your long-term athletic assessment, I respectfully disagree with the need to potentially wait several years to proceed and pass it and get it installed. You see, I say that because I have one child. He is going to be a sophomore this year. And so you can understand, as a taxpayer and as a citizen of Maple Grove who wants to continue to see the city set up for success, as well as the school district set up for success, I want to make sure that that passes now so that he and his classmates can benefit from the opportunities that the scoreboard can provide. Waiting several years is not only unnecessary, and it's not appropriate given the fact that we know the school board has the funds available. It is at the detriment of my son's school experience, both athletically and, quite frankly, academically. I say academically because we need a school board mainly for the academic purposes that the school scoreboard can provide. It provides educational opportunities for not only students in Maple Grove, but in the district who are interested in AV technology and in sports marketing. And I can say that firsthand as a leader at a major media and technology company. I can tell you that the benefits that kids can learn from technology such as this is instrumental in our future workforce. And the school board knows, I believe, that the scoreboard itself is nearly 20 years old. So replacing items on it is actually more cumbersome than it's worth, and we're not providing those students that support that with the educational opportunities that they truly need. The school board will have, or the scoreboard, excuse me, they go kind of sound the same, don't they? The scoreboard will have multiple purpose. It will be used for both girls and boys sports. And in addition, Maple Grove is the only 6A football team in the district, and we need that scoreboard to continue to compete and attract people to Maple Grove, helping continue to make it vibrant and a great place to live, work, and play. The district recently spent $3.6 million on athletic turf fields for both Osseo and Park Center without a referendum as part of your $4 million district budgeted for that project. It was approved and construction started in a matter of months. Is there any reason that the remaining $400,000 that you saw in savings can't be quickly diverted to the video replay scoreboard so that we can begin that project immediately? Giving Maple Grove that funding is 1/5 of what the other schools will be receiving, so it's not a lot to ask. And we will even, as a Maple Grove community, raise the funds ourselves if that's what it takes. We just need your approval tonight to do so. And don't get me wrong.
Go ahead, finish, please,
Okay,
wrap it
all
up.
right. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled that we are allocating funds to both Osseo and Park Center, making them economically sound in surrounding communities and making them competitive and equally equipped with the right materials only helps our overall community thrive, and that is what we are really part of, right? We're part of a larger community. but there must be fair allocation of the funding so that all three schools can compete academically and athletically, which in turn allows our community to continue to be a vibrant place to live, work, and play. So overall, this request is really about improving our overall community, ensuring our kids have an environment to thrive in and become something bigger than themselves. So as a taxpayer and as a parent, I'm asking that you please consider our request for the scoreboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hornbacher. All right, our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Bout.
We'll start with Points of Pride. It's a regular part of our report where we celebrate students, staff, and community members who have contributed to the accomplishment of our mission. And we have cabinet members lined up to share those this evening. Cabinet members?
Under the Achieving Dreams category, more than 1,400 students from Maple Grove, Osseo, and Park Center Senior High Schools graduated on June 8th at 3M Arena at Mariucci. On June 7th, the Maple Grove Senior High girls softball team defeated Stillwater 3-2 to win the Class 4A state title. Senior pitcher Ava Duick was also recently named Minnesota Gatorade Softball Player of the Year and the 2019 Star Tribune Metro Player of the Year.
3 teams from Osseo area schools competed at the 2019 Destination Imagination Global Finals in Kansas City, Missouri in late May. The 6 Smarties from Rush Creek Elementary placed 3rd in the world in their improvisation event. The Super 7 Sensations, also from Rush Creek, competed in the same event and placed 20th out of the 66 teams. Gentlemen Boys from Maple Grove Middle School placed 39th in their middle level improvisation category. Osseo and Maple Grove Senior High Schools have once again been recognized by U.S. News and World Report as 2 of the nation's best high schools. Maple Grove previously received this recognition from 2015 through 2017, and Osseo also made the list in 2018.
Journalist turned author Sean Jensen visited with 4th and 5th graders at Garden City Elementary on May 21st and spoke about using courage, integrity, and perseverance to overcome challenges and achieve dreams. In the category of contributing to community, student ambassadors at Basswood Elementary organized a Pennies for Patients drive this spring. Their efforts helped raise more than $2,600 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
90 students from Osseo and Park Center Senior High Schools went to the state capitol on May 14th to celebrate and honor Hmong Lao Veterans Memorial Day. These students were in the Hmong for Native Speakers courses at both schools. Park Center freshman Lindsay Lee was also asked by event organizers to sing the national anthem. In the area of lifelong learning, 5th graders at Fernbrook Elementary had the opportunity to teach STEM lessons to their peers during the school's first student-led school-wide Enrichment Day on May 31st. With support from the Fernbrook PTO and under the guidance of teacher Kim LeClaire, more than 60 students taught lessons such as Bebot robot coding, magnetic slime, and ice cream making.
Zanewood Community School, a science, technology, engineering, arts, and math school, celebrated its first year as a STEAM magnet school with a school-wide STEAM Fest, featuring student projects, community partners, and special celebrity guest, Fox 9 meteorologist Keith Marler. In the category of mission-driven employees, Osseo Senior High Principal Michael Lehan has been named the High School Principal of the Year for the Hennepin Division by the Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals. This award honors administrators who collaborate with their staff to support student achievement and foster a positive school climate. You can read more Points of Pride on our website at district279.org.
Thank you, cabinet members. And then I would just like to finish the report by saying it's been my privilege to work with you as a school board and the cabinet and all the staff over the several months. I know it was a busy year, but I believe a productive year. And I do sincerely appreciate from the board members your support your patience with me at times, and your willingness to work alongside of me. So thank you for making my time here enjoyable, and thank you for the very kind remarks earlier. That was not a necessary part of the agenda tonight, but thank you. They're appreciated. And best wishes as you move forward now into the 2019 and 20 school year. So thank you. That's the report this evening.
Thank you. Your last one for a while, right?
Yeah.
All right, our next agenda item are the school board reports. Director Mosqueda Jones, do you have a committee report or an update?
I attended the District 279 Foundation Trustees meeting last week, and we have 3 new trustees on the board. There's new officers, and there's a new committee for development to look at new ways to develop funds for our classroom grants, et cetera.
Thank you. Director Dawson-Walton, do you have a report or an update? No? Director Craig?
Yes, I will read the policy committee report. The school board policy committee met at the ESC at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. Board members Jessica Craig, Heather Douglas, and Jackie Mosqueda Jones attended. Also attending were district level principals Sarah Vernig and Tim Palmatier, general counsel. During the meeting, the committee reviewed policy and procedure 506, student discipline, and recommended minor edits to the policy, which are being presented for first reading during tonight's meeting. At the meeting, the committee also reviewed an initial draft of proposed policy 505, which pertains to student use of cell phones and other personal electronic devices at school or during school-sponsored activities. The committee decided to hold this proposed policy over for further discussion and consideration at the next policy committee meeting. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled to be held at the ESC on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. Policy committee meetings are open to the public, and community members are encouraged to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Craig. Director Simons, do you have any updates?
Nope.
Director Douglas?
I do. Last week I attended the District 287 board meeting, and it was a good wrap-up to the end of the school year there. We talked about programming for the summer. A lot of the kids in District 287 attend school throughout the year for summer school. And we also they had a really, at the beginning of every meeting, they do sort of like we do Points of Pride, but it's actually a student or two that tell their story of success. So that's always really great to hear. And everything's going really smooth.
Very good. Anyone else have any other updates? All right, thank you. The next agenda item is the consent agenda. And board members, are there any items that you would like to remove for separate consideration? There's 2 contracts here that I would like to remove for separate discussion. That would be G, School Board Resource or School Resource Officers contract, and N, contract by and between ISD 279 and National Urban Alliance. So, with those 2 removed, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of accepting the consent agenda as amended, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. So the consent agenda has passed with 2 items removed that we will do separately after the end of the other items on our action items. The first action item on tonight's
Mike?
agenda. Yeah.
Just one additional thing. We did goof up on your transcript for the evening, so we do have a presentation on the LTFM plan before we do our action items.
Okay, all right. Well, you couldn't go out, you
I
had to
could
go
not
out.
without having a do-si-do in there, so.
All right. So we are going to talk about the long-term facility maintenance plan. There is a presentation. It is on the printed agenda. It's just not on the one they gave to me. So, Ron, take it away.
All right. Good evening, Chair Ostaffi, Interim Superintendent Bauk, and school board members. Each year, school districts with a long-term facility maintenance program are required by the Minnesota Department of Education to submit a 10-year LTFM plan. This plan includes 4 components: a spreadsheet summarizing the planned expenditures for 10 years, a spreadsheet summarizing the planned LTFM revenue for 10 years, a statement of assurance, and proof of board approval. At the July 23rd board meeting, administration will present and request approval of our 10-year plan for submission to the Department of Education. Tonight, we want to give some background to the 10-year planning process and highlight some elements of the final documents you will see in July. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dale Karlstrom to walk us through some of the projects that are included in our 10-year plan.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Bauk. This evening, we will provide a brief summary of the LTFM process and update the board on the 3-part LTFM project process of planning, construction, and closeout. I will discuss the closeout of 2018-19, the construction startup of 2019-20, projects, and the plan for the 2020-21 work. Let's take a look at 2018-19 construction season. Our budget for the past year has been $31.3 million. And as we wrap up the major projects, we are $1.5 million under budget. The major work that we were doing this year has been at Northview Middle School, Park Center Senior High School, Osseo Middle School, and Oakview, and the Osseo Senior High Ice Arena. Each of these projects had a heavy focus on mechanical renovations and renovations to the infrastructure. There was a significant amount of finishes work that was associated with these areas, and there were where we needed to gain access to the plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. We wrapped up the first phase of the Northview project and are on to the second phase of this major work of overhauling the systems. Park Center Senior High School's renovations to the mechanical and student restrooms and positions has positioned us for the future renovation of the 3-story portion of the building when we complete our work with the next generation learning spaces and in coordination with the ECMAC work. We have completed the second phase of the mechanical renovations of Osseo Middle School. We have completed the mechanical renovations and finishes improvement at Oakview. In collaboration with the Osseo Maple Grove Hockey Association, we have restored parts of the mechanical equipment and refurbished and added additional locker room space. In addition to the major projects, we have completed $11 million in categorical renovations throughout the school district. These include fire safety, health safety, paving, roofing, flooring, door and lock set equipment, lighting, playgrounds, and mechanical equipment. In addition, there is also much work that we've done at every school and that we continue to push forward with the efforts to do deferred maintenance items. The summer of 2019 construction season went into full swing on June 10th, and we have budgeted $28.7 million in LTFM restoration efforts. We have 6 major projects underway at Osseo Senior High, Northview Middle School, Weaver Lake Elementary, Brooklyn Middle School, and Park Center High School. The work at Osseo Senior High is $5.2 million and begins phase 1 of the multi-phase project. The focus of the project is on replacing mechanical equipment in the 2-story wing and the auditorium music areas. Northview Middle School, a $4.6 million project, is phase 2 of a mechanical equipment renovations project that will include the installation of a second chiller plant, demolition of the remaining steam boiler, and piping hot and chilled water throughout the building to the 2nd story. There will also be renovations to the PE locker rooms. At Weaver Lake Elementary, a project of $3.4 million is a mechanical upgrade to the heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems. The chiller plant is being replaced, and the lighting and ceiling finishes in the affected areas will be replaced as well. This project is nearly identical to the work that we did at Oakview last summer, the summer of 2018. At Brooklyn Middle School, we'll have a two-part project for $1.1 million, and we'll replace the electrical service for Brooklyn Middle School and Park Center Senior High School. The second part of the replacement of the plumbing fixtures, equipment, and finishes for 6 student bathrooms. And then there will be work on similar to that we did at Northview Middle School and Osseo Middle School. The Park Center project is $2.3 million and couples restoration with the existing parking lot and lighting with changes to the driveways at Noble and Regent. Osseo Ice Arena project is $1.3 million and replaces the chiller plant that was and related equipment and controls. In addition to this major project, we have budgeted categorical work totaling about $10.7 million. Since January of 2019, our LTFM steering committee has been working to establish our priority work for the summer of 2020. Through the process of identifying critical mechanical equipment deterioration and risks for equipment failure, we have selected Elm Creek and Rice Lake Elementaries for phase 1 of a building-wide renovation plan. These schools were built in 1980 and are, for the most part, identical. We have established budgets of $3 million for each site, and we'll be renovating the mechanical equipment starting in the boiler room and working on half of the building adjacent to the boiler room. We'll be leaving the renovation of the second half of the building where most of the classrooms are for the phase 2. At Crestview, we are working on establishing a scope for working for restroom renovations, finished replacement, and site work. At Birch Grove, we are planning a mechanical renovation for the chiller plant, their air handling systems, and the site has had the boiler room replaced already so that we're focusing on all the support equipment. This is approximately a $5.5 million project, and we've decided how far we can go and in the last few years, and $5.5 million is something that we've kind of a line that we don't cross because we're afraid that we won't get it done in the summer allotted. As in the previous years, we'll intend to maintain categorical restoration efforts, and we are budgeting $11 million for that work. In November of 2019, the board will receive the LTFM project summary sheets for 2020 and 2021. This summary includes all the component parts of a project that tie out to the total project budget. The summary sheet's designed to help the board review the project and administration brings forward for recommendation and bid awards. The 3-part long-term facility maintenance approval process will be brought to the board in July, and as Ron mentioned earlier, it includes the 10-year expenditure plan update, the revised 10-year revenue plan, and the fiscal year 2021 application for LTFM revenue statement of assurances. Shown here is a draft of the LTFM 10-year expenditure plan that administration will recommend to the board at your July 2019 regular meeting. This is a rolling 10-year plan, and the board reviews the approves annually, and it's also sent to the Minnesota Department of Education for review as well. The 10-year plan is a source of direction for the LTFM project planning, and the budget amounts that I have been discussing this evening are reflected in the 3 years on the 10-year expenditure plan. The expenditure plan has a health safety component that reports separately and a deferred maintenance portion that lines out categorically work such as electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and roofing. The totals found at the bottom of the form are the target amounts used for building our annual LTFM budget and what I've been speaking to this evening. Ron's going to speak a little now about the revenue projections that we're going to supply.
So the second item that will be presented to the board in July is the 10-year revenue projection worksheet. You can see an example, snapshot of it on the screen. This form is tied directly to the 10-year expenditure spreadsheet that Dale just talked about, and it represents 3 different revenue streams that we utilize for LTFM work that the district anticipates doing over the next 10 years. Our district's LTFM projects are funded through a combination of our local levy, or what's called pay-as-you-go. Through state aid, we receive just over $1 million of state aid each year for LTFM. And then proceeds from bonding. As you may recall, we issued bonds last fall for 2 years of LTFM. This 10-year revenue worksheet includes the calculation for state aid and levy amounts, as well as the debt payments each year for the bonds that we issue. The business office works closely with our financial advisors, LRs, to create levy and debt schedules that utilize each of these revenue streams to limit the overall impact on our taxpayers, while also achieving our LTFM goals. Additionally, on this revenue worksheet is Osseo's obligation to Intermediate District 287's LTFM plan. To address the health and safety and deferred maintenance requirements at their facilities, District 287 requests each district in their consortium to levy for LTFM dollars each year for both pay-as-you-go as well as some debt payments for bonds they previously sold. For Osseo, the total contribution for FY 2021 is just over $201,000, and you will see that then for the out years in our 10-year plan as well, that same amount, just over $201,000. In July, the board will be asked to approve, through board resolution, the District 287 10-year LTFM plan at our July meeting as well. The last item that the board will take action on in July is the statement of assurance form. That's part of our requirement, the 4-step requirement I talked about at the beginning. It's required to be signed by the superintendent by July 31st of each year. This form, the example is up on your screen, confirms and assures that the district has followed the requirements for LTFM expenditures and our accounting of our revenue and expenditures, and that we have a compliance health and safety program maintained in our district. So some of the next steps in our LTFM process, as we mentioned several times, we'll have a 3-part 10-year plan, including our expenditure worksheet, the revenue spreadsheet, and the statement of assurance that will come to the board for approval on July 23rd. The District 287 board resolution will also come to the board for approval at that same July meeting. Administration will ask the board for approval of our professional services contracts at that meeting as well. These include contracts for our engineers, our architects, and our commissioning agents, as well as our owner representatives, again, that assist us in these LTFM projects planning and execution throughout the year. In September, the board will be asked to approve the preliminary levy, which will include the revenue from our 10-year plan in that preliminary levy. In November, the board will receive, as Dale mentioned earlier, a project summary for each of the major projects planned for the summer of 2021. This will give board members a reference for when bids come to the board throughout the spring, so you can reference back to those project plans. The final levy certification, including our LTFM revenue, will be acted on by the board in December. And then again, throughout the spring, our bids will be coming for approval for those LTFM projects, and those project summaries will be included in each of those bid awards as we bring them forth for recommended action. And that is the end of our presentation. Do board members have any questions?
Board members?
Sure, I have a few. On the 1.5 that we came in under, was that due to changes in scope of work or projects, or due to them coming in less actual expense than we planned?
When we do our initial budgeting and planning, we plan for contingency, and we are attempting to stay under budget so that we can protect ourselves against some of the things that you're talking about, potential, if the market starts turning and we start seeing increases in some of the construction costs and so forth. So we're attempting to try to stay ahead of that curve.
And we've been talking about the items that we're doing this summer and the items that are coming up, the projects, for some time now. But maybe there'd be some benefit to describing our process and how we determine what projects go onto our list. Can you give a brief overview for the benefit of those who might be listening or watching tonight?
Okay, we have a LTFM, a long-term facility management team, committee members who meet every week or every other week, and we talk about, well, we're in those three years all the time, so we're talking about what happened, what we're going to do, and what we're planning to do in the future, and those are in the next that next fiscal. Those are the areas that we are focusing on, because we know a lot more about those 3 years than we do about what's going to happen 5 years or 10 years out. We can guess, we can estimate what's going to fail and so forth, but we do a lot of focusing on those years so that we can back into those numbers so that we're hitting the most needy parts of our system, things that, like I said in my presentation, things that might fail, things that might cause difficulty to operations during the school year. So that's our main strategy, and we started out this process back in 2016 with a big plan that said, here's all the things that we need to replace over the next 10 years. And we've been rolling that plan forward and trying to focus on the worst first with respect to mechanical and with finishes and that sort of thing. And we have carved out $12 million of our annual budget to spread out through the system so we're not losing ground while we're focusing on some of these big projects. I hope that helps.
The other thing that I would add to that is that part of the prioritization process that team is doing as we meet every other week is looking at some of the other elements that are happening around the district. For instance, our ECMAC work and some of the conversations that we're having with ECMAC, and what are some of the other needs potentially that we might have from a capacity standpoint, so that we're planning out the work that we're doing with LTFM so that it can align really well with potential building that we might have to do from some of our ECMAC work. So it's really kind of looking at our priorities, looking at our budget, and looking at some of the opportunities so that we're not duplicating our efforts in some of that work.
And during the course of the year, if we learn of new needs and opportunities, we're locking in the dollars in our assessment. Can you share how would a new need or opportunity kind of come into the process during the course of the year from where we're at today?
Yeah, I think we're always evaluating the needs, and that's one of the benefits of having those regular meetings with our LTFM team. And certainly part of the benefit of having some of those savings that Dale described in terms of getting some of those benefits with our contingencies, but also bids coming in under what we estimated, is it does give us some flexibility, some opportunities to tackle some of those priorities, whether it's taking priorities that didn't make the short list for that year, or if new priorities arise, and we can continue. Each time that we get together, we're constantly looking at what are those priorities and what's the next thing on the list that we need to tackle.
And go ahead, please.
And with that, so we've talked, I'm aware that we're looking at a long-term facilities assessment, a new kind of scan of the environment. Is that correct? And
say more to that.
So in terms of our athletic facilities, yes. And so there's another set of work coming.
Yep.
To
yep, so that's one of those other, I mentioned ECMAC, but we're certainly, right now we're engaged in an audit of our athletic and activities, facilities, and some of the needs that we may have there. And so that would certainly be information that, that could enter into our work with LTFM as well, depending on what that audit, the audit results are from that.
And to clarify, I know, like you said, 3 years ago, you went through and looked at every building envelope, every window, every fixture, every mechanical piece of equipment, and you rated it by lifetime, I believe, or expected lifetime, and that's where these initial years have been coming from. You're working down from worst to...
That's correct. And then as we go, we're continuing to analyze that. So if there are components that come up, whether it's a mechanical feature, we're starting to have a hard time getting parts to, and we're having a lot of issues, that could change that priority level. So that's why we're constantly monitoring that. But certainly our staff out in the field is constantly monitoring and looking at all of our facilities and the things that enter into it to make sure that our priorities still are, if they need to be moved around a little bit to focus on an area that maybe wasn't initially identified, but because of things that have happened in the meantime have come up, then we can address those.
And were sports facilities included in that initial scan from maintenance type issues?
Yes, from the perspective of like stadium bleachers and, some of the guts of some of our gymnasiums and that sort of thing, yeah, and that was included. Floor replacement, lighting replacement, all that sort of thing.
Okay, and all the work at Osseo Ice Arena?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
The one thing that, I'm sorry, I was thinking about while Ron was talking was that part of our focus is to try to hit that established mark that we came to, that $20 million annual spend, that will help us not lose ground, so that if we can get to that point where we've gotten to those worst first kind of things, and now we're doing maintenance as opposed to catch up. And I think that was one of our goals from the outset. We're trying to hit that mark right now.
And if I recall from previous discussions, that it was, we were underspending by up to 50% compared to comparable districts and compared to what we needed to maintain.
Yeah, we were spending
up until that
between
point.
$8 and $10 million annually. So.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
When will the audit be complete?
The activities audit, we were hoping around mid-August. They're working on it right now. They're gathering the data. They'll be working with our team. So we're hoping, middle to end of August that we'll have some results from that.
Okay.
Tim, we've been talking about these items, like I said, for a while, so I have a lot of confidence in the process, and I think one of the challenges in a district of our size is that sometimes we only notice projects when they start going under construction or they're in our neighborhood. And so the thing that I've really appreciated about this process is the objective nature in which you're looking at the replacement needs. And so, for example, with Elm Creek and Rice Lake undergoing work here in 2021, you mentioned they were both built around the same time. So we can expect that flow of dollars to kind of follow the age of our different resources in our schools. And as well as you mentioned, when we think about upcoming future needs, that will be in areas of our district that are changing and growing too. So that's been something that's been really helpful to me coming on and learning about. And I just hope that we continue to make that transparent and find ways to help engage the community through our other community efforts, so that we can help ensure that the community feels that they understand the process as well and can kind of see the transparency that I feel that we see on this side of the table here. So thank you for the hard work.
I'd just like to add, traditionally I've felt this was a very aggressive budget and timeline, but I do appreciate that for years you have really stuck to the budget and in many cases have come under budget. So I'm very thankful for that conscious, the awareness of the budget and the allocation of dollars. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Ron. Dale, thank you. Okay, so the first action item tonight is the recommendation for approval of the strategic priority results for 2019-2020. And Dr. Bout.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a few minutes, kind of recap the journey we had this year to get to the strategic plan for 1920 in the document that's in front of you tonight. Your work began back in January when we had our advanced sessions and we talked about strategic planning, how did you want to move forward, and we kind of worked our way through a number of agendas that night. We looked briefly at the current plan in one of those sessions. And basically, the outcome of those multiple sessions in January was to stay the course one more year with the priority results, at least that framework that we currently have, appropriately adjusted, which we've done over the work sessions. And then this coming year, one of the major efforts by the school board and your new superintendent would be to focus on refreshing the strategic plan and having it ready then for 2021. In the last 3 months now, we've had 3 work sessions almost entirely dedicated to this current strategic plan and what we're going to do for 1920. And I know they were long and arduous sessions into the evening, so thank you for your time commitment. But we had our result teams there in front of you each of those evenings talking about, you know, what took place this year, what recommendations they had for next year, and then answering questions that board members had on how to shape those priority results for next year. And at the third work session, presented a plan to you for your consideration, which is in front of you tonight, and I've got a couple edits on it since the June 4th work session. But also that evening, we included some action steps for the current year, and then some potential measurements of those results to report out next spring. And the last thing that we included in that January 4th work session were the 3 items that are on the single sheet this evening that are directed to the school board work, which is the onboarding of your superintendent, the strategic plan work, which I talked about, and a possible referendum in the future. So the document in front of you this evening is a 1-page document. There were 2 minor wording edits that I want to point out to you. Under the 5th bullet, where it is the technology one, path, place, and place, for some reason, Sherry and I kept continuing a clause at the end that read, "in the digital age," period. And Anthony eloquently pointed it out to us multiple times that was to be removed based on the March 5th work session. Really, we had 4 work sessions on strategic planning. And so we finally were able to edit it out. And so it has that last piece, or that last clause, gone. And then underneath the engagement of students and families, the bulleted item, Barb pointed out to me that we didn't have parallel language throughout the document, and that one started with a verb. So then we put in the 2 words, "the district." So the rest of it, though, is as you saw it on June 4th. So as past practice, the board only approves the priority results. The mission, the core values, the strategies that are on that other side of that document, that it's out throughout the district, that remains the same. We talked about that in January, leaving that as is for right now. So that would remain the same. And we're really down to a point now where, unless you have some additional suggestions this evening, we'll be ready to move forward. So the next steps would be, should you approve this tonight, then the cabinet and the priority result team, leadership teams will start working on getting those 9 priorities ready to go. We did eliminate 2 based on your input, or sunsetted them. And then the second piece is actually Barb working on this document and then revising it based on your approval tonight and having that ready to go next school year. And I just have one caveat question that needs to be answered tonight from the board, and that is, in the past, we haven't included the board priorities, but at our last work session, we did talk about leaving them on this sheet. So that would be on the back side of the mission, goals, strategies, core values. The single sheet in front of you tonight would be as is unless you want us to take off the school board priorities. My recommendation to you is to leave them on there. It shows the community, as you said on June 4th, what you are working on with your new superintendent as the year cascades forward. So with that commentary, I'll turn it back to you, Mike. Should there be a motion in a second, I'll stand for questions, and I just need some direction on that school board piece.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the strategic priority results for 2019-2020?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And the second. Is there any discussion? Let's start with Jackie. Any questions for Dr. Bauk or any thoughts?
No, I agree with the, leaving the board priorities on there, and I like it the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Kelsey?
No, I mean, I think we put a lot of work into this together, and I really am excited, and I stand behind our priority work. I think there's consensus that we really want to work with our communities and our families and be transparent and really take our issues and problem solve together, but also take our celebrations and being able to be really proud of our district and move us toward a path of continued excellence. So,
Thank you. Jessica?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. Tanya?
I just want to echo the thanks to cabinet members and staff who participated in all of the working sessions with us. And I want to echo Kelsey's statements in terms of our work to have transparency and accountability. So I'm really pleased with the behind the scenes work and the additional metrics and measures that are behind this document as well. So I'm really pleased with where we landed, and I really appreciate everybody's work on it.
Heather?
I agree with everything that my fellow board members have said, and I would also agree that we proceed as printed.
Yes.
Okay, and yeah, I say that we move forward as it's printed, and I do appreciate the hard work to put those measurements together and think through, and there's still more to come, but I do appreciate that there is going to be accountability measures that we're all going to see and we're going to be held accountable to. So thank you for that. With that, all in favor of the motion to approve the strategic priority results, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
The second action item tonight is the adoption of the fiscal year 2020 budget. And Ron Meyer, please present.
Good evening again, Chair Ostafi, Interim Superintendent Bauk, and school board members. Before you this evening is a recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2020 budget. This budget is a culmination of a year-long process of planning and collaborating with various stakeholders across the district. At the school board work session on June 4th, the board heard details of the budget, which includes recent state legislative changes, as well as elements from the district's long-range financial planning process. Kelly Benusa is going to briefly summarize our process and the final budget for your consideration. But before I turn it over to Kelly, I just want to thank her and her entire business office staff. Tonight she has two of her staff members, Mike Kuehler and Cindy Brown, with her this evening, and they led a team effort within the Business Services Department to put together this, this final product. So thank you to her and her team.
Good evening. Budget decisions are made using the Long-Range Financial Planning Framework, which includes a financial forecasting model that provides the basis of our budget planning for financial sustainability. The school board engaged in several work sessions throughout the budget development process, and at the January 8th work session, the board carefully considered the budget recommendations. The Long-Range Financial Planning Advisory Team's assessment of impact was provided to the board prior to the action by the board at the February 12th school board meeting. This is a summary of the Long-Range Financial Planning Framework. The framework provides coherence between our system's mission and strategic plan and the allocation of resources through the collaboration of budget managers, and it describes the direction provided by the school board. This is the 7th year of the Long-Range Financial Planning process and is being used for planning for the general transportation operating funds and the 6th year for all other budgeted funds. Budget planning, approval, and implementation is a continuous process. We follow a similar timeline every year. The school board approved strategic priorities in June of 2018. and department staff aligned continuous improvement plans with the strategic priorities. The board met to set the budget targets at the November work session, which provided direction for staff in preparing the program efficiency, abandonment, and redirection narratives that describe needed adjustments to meet budget targets and complete the work on strategic priorities. The levy was approved in December, and the pair summaries were approved by the school board in February. We then prepared the final budget, which reflects the board-approved adjustments, and we monitored the impact of the legislative session. This was a biennial funding year, and the 2% increase in the basic formula allowance is included in the revenue budget. The budget presented is the same as the budget discussed at the June 4th work session. The budget is the culmination of this process, and will continue this process for next year's budget. Now we'll provide information regarding the fiscal year 2020 budgets. The budgets that will be adopted are for all 5 funds. In this presentation, we'll provide detailed information about the General Operating Transportation Fund because it makes up most of the overall budget. Details of these budgets were discussed at the June 4th work session. The fiscal year 2020 General Transportation Fund revenues are budgeted to increase 4.98% compared to the fiscal year 2019 revised budget. The largest area of increase was in the general education aid due to a formula enhancement of 2% and a projected increase of 155 students. The voter-approved operating referendum is increasing due to inflation and growth in projected students, and special education increased $2 million due to revised estimates that were available in May of 2019 that impact the fiscal year 2020 revenue formula. Other large areas of increase were for local optional revenue, desegregation transportation, and abatement revenue estimates. The fiscal year 2020 General Transportation Fund expenditures are budgeted to increase 3.39% compared to the fiscal year 2019 revised budget. This is lower than our recent expenditure trend growth of 3.75%. Through board direction and discussion, we lowered the trend to 3.25%. The budget tonight is slightly higher and includes the February 12th board-approved adjustments and the June 4th board direction for co-located services. Through the long-range financial planning process for fiscal year 2020, the board approved a strategic increase in budget capacity of $381,222 to create a contingency for teachers based on enrollment growth. And then at the June 4th board work session, the board directed administration to add $195,000 for co-located services expenditures for 1 year only. The net effect of the revenue and expenditure budget variance on the proposed General Operating Transportation Fund budget results in an anticipated operating deficit of $826,000 for fiscal year 2020. The ending fund balance is projected to be 26.22% of annual expenditures, or $66.1 million. The proposed fund balance is $4.3 million higher than was anticipated back in March. Board policy recommends a minimum fund balance of 5%, which we are in compliance with this proposed budget. This slide is a summary of all 5 fund budgets that we're adopting for fiscal year 2020. The General Transportation Fund is shown in blue, and that was the fund that we just discussed, and is included just for comparison purposes. The Food Nutrition Services Fund is the red column. The Food Nutrition Services Fund is projecting a planned decrease of $625,000. The revenue increase is attributed to 4 fewer days in fiscal year 2019 due to weather-related closures, and the increase in expenditures includes the change in allocating costs for workers' compensation and $315,000 of budget adjustments approved through the long-range financial process. The Community Service Fund is the green column. Overall community service is projecting a decrease in fund balance of $424,000. The main reasons for the increase in revenue and expenditures are due to projected increases in early childhood family education and school readiness programs. The Capital Land Proceeds Fund is the purple column. The increase in revenue can be attributed to the voter-approved inflationary increase in the capital technology levy and certificates of participation for additions in lease levy. The lease levy will be reduced through the levy process in fiscal year 2021 since this issuance did not occur. This, together with the increase in expenditures, results in a $2.9 million planned deficit in the Capital Land Proceeds Fund. The Debt Service Fund is the orange column. The revenue reflects the required levies for ongoing debt service payments. The expenditures reflect the required annual principal and interest payments for outstanding debt. Fund balance is projected to be $9.3 million at the end of fiscal 2020. The action item tonight is the recommended adoption of the fiscal year 2020 budgets for all funds. The adoption means that the budget was prepared in accordance with the board direction. And that concludes the presentation on the budget. Are there any questions?
You'll need a motion in
Yep,
a
we need
second
a motion
before.
first. So, is there a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020 budget as presented? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion? We'll start down here, Director Douglas. Questions or comments?
I don't have any questions, but I do appreciate all the work that you and your team have put into this, and thorough explanations and documents that are easy to understand and evaluate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Director Simons?
No questions. Again, I appreciate the process. It's been very rigorous, and we've had really quality updates over the course of the time I've been on the board, so I really appreciate that. I think that we can continue to make versions of budget information available from like a community perspective, as we've talked about, so I'm looking forward to more work over the next year there.
Director Craig?
Just thank you to your team and to our budget managers, and appreciate all the work.
Director Dustin Walton?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what everyone said. I mean, I think it's hard, it is what we're called to do as a board, to look at our budget and ensure what we're investing in and, using our dollars in a responsible way while balancing community needs and feedbacks and wants. And I think that the process has been very rigorous. We've had a lot of discussion around it. I think the way it's laid out really allows us to be accountable and to kind of reevaluate some things if not going in the right direction. And so, yeah, I just really appreciate the work that's been put into this. And yeah.
Okay, Director Mosqueda-Jones?
I also want to thank you for all your hard work, because I know how much you put in and how much we put in it over the work sessions. Are we looking at moving to approve this next, or is this?
That is the motion in front of us, is to approve the budget as presented.
I just want to make a statement that I think several of us on the board might agree with me, but I'm just going to speak for myself, that cutting ESP hours is really hard, and that we want to look at how that affects our classrooms in very strategic and clear ways for next year. But doing a budget is a difficult thing, and I think that we all come at it with different views, and I appreciate all the different views that have gone into this and the work that we do. And just to reiterate that we're going to be watching this pretty closly.
Okay, thank you. And I asked all my questions at the meetings that went till 10 o'clock at night, so you're welcome. But I do want to say thank you.
He looks right at me.
Yeah. But no, there is obviously a lot that's going on, and the budget priorities, as we've stated earlier, we are starting to look at strategic priorities, starting to put much more measurements around that, and holding and having accountability. So when we talk about adding 5 here and changing things here, there has to be some outcomes that we want and expect, and we will look to make sure that that's people are held accountable for that. So. With that, is there well, we have the discussion. All in favor of adopting the fiscal year 2020 budget as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next action item is a recommendation for approval of workers' compensation insurance rate and the carrier. Ron Meyer, up again.
Thank you, Chair Ostafio, Interim Superintendent Bauk, and school board members. Before you is a recommendation for approval of our workers' comp insurance for fiscal year 2020. The district is just completing their first year working with SFM Mutual Insurance Company, and the current contract expires on June 30th. Overall, SFM has performed well in customer service, claims, and collaboration with the district. The new contract includes an increase of premiums of just over $118,000 or 12.7%. This change is a result of a significant increase in claims for last fiscal year with our previous insurance company. The increase is reflected in the budget that came before you just a moment ago. And our recommendation is to approve the proposed contract for the 2020 fiscal year.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the workers' compensation insurance rate and carrier?
So moved.
We have a motion, and we have a second. Any discussion? Questions for Mr. Meyer?
So you said there's a increase here that's significant with the change in the claims. Is this a overall trend upward, or is this different?
Yeah, so like I said, it's based on our increase in claims last year, which was a little bit of an outlier. We are, it is a 3-year mod that they look at, and so we will have those increase, we expect, for the next couple of years. We're hoping that claims will continue to decrease. This year we are experiencing a decrease from the previous year. And so once that year falls off, we're hoping that we'll get some better rates.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Directors, any other questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the workers' compensation insurance rate and carrier, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next up is the recommendation to accept gifts to the district totaling 60.
Mike, you had held off 2 items from the consent.
I was going to put that underneath those two.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm just going to follow in that order.
Okay.
So, and I didn't say final action as written, so, I did modify it on my own.
Okay.
So the next item is a recommendation to accept gifts to the district totaling $67,703.87. Is there a motion to accept those gifts?
So moved.
We have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. Any discussion?
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Many people contributed to this. Many people, organizations and PTOs and people and companies and everyone who did so. Thank you very much. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0, and thank you very much. We have 2 items that we withheld from the consent agenda, and we'll move to the action item list. First one is the school resource officer's contract. And I guess I'll start out asking for a motion to approve the school resource officer's contract that was listed in the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I specifically wanted to discuss this, so thank you. So right now, we're doing a 1-year extension, and I know in the past I've talked to our previous head of finance and operations regarding including other districts or other police districts in other cities in this contract. And so we're doing a 1-year extension here is what this looks like, so that we can go out and look at other opportunities, see what other people may have changed over the past several years in their desire or ability to participate in this contract. So that's why we're doing it. I just wanted to get that out there, that we just weren't steamrolling over one of our local cities, that things are being, will be addressed. There will be people reaching out to, judge what needs to be in that contract and who would like to participate. So any questions or comments on that?
I just wanted to say that I appreciate you bringing this up as an issue, because we do have local communities that are not included that would like to be, and so I appreciate that we are going to evaluate that. But in the meantime, we obviously need to move forward with what we have going right now. So.
I agree. I think it's really valuable to have the partnerships with our member cities and communities. And having been participant in the Brooklyn Park commissions, there's just, it really helps the community and the district when we can use resource officers from the local community and build stronger relationships. I think it's beneficial for us both.
Okay, with that, all in favor of approving the school resource officer's contract, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next item that was removed for separate consideration was the contract between ISD 279 and the National Urban Alliance for Professional Development, supporting culturally responsive instructional strategies from July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. This contract shall not exceed $199,000. Board members, do I have a motion to approve that contract?
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second on that. Is there any discussion? And I wanted to comment on this. As we move forward, National Urban Alliance has been working with us for the past several years, and we have started some cohort development, and we are starting to see results, and I appreciate that. That is work that we are also looking to put some very specific measurements around so that we continue to see what the value is and are we achieving the value of spending this kind of money. I raised some questions with Dr. Balk earlier regarding the expenditure amounts and some of these things that were very costly on a per-person basis per day without actually knowing who the people are that were doing the training. And you know, that's an issue. We're blank checking this somewhat, but leaving it up to our team to ensure that the people that are coming in for this do indeed have the background, the capabilities to train our people. With that said, this is also something that it is key and core to what we're trying to do. This is something that we need to seriously consider developing our own strengths in and our own capacity internally. That money that we're spending this year can hire 2 teachers, you know, 2 people that can work full-time and not just 10 days during some training sessions. So that is something that I want to, you know, to have us seriously look at and consider, you know, during this next year, so that when this comes up for approval 12 months from now, we may have a different view of how we want to implement this strategy and who will be doing it. Again, there's been nothing negative with NUA, but this is a large amount of money, and we could be building our internal capacity in this. That's my thoughts. Any questions or comments? Any other board members?
No, I just want to be conscious of the plan that we submit to the Department of Education. I don't know if this would have any implications on that, but just something to be aware of as we discuss in the future. So.
Yeah, no, this is something that we have
The
to.
Achievement Integration Plan comes up next year for review, so this will all be woven probably into that.
No,
Okay.
Now's a good time to start discussing it.
Yeah, thank you for pulling it out. I think it's, anytime we have contracts of this size and we're talking about outsourcing training or content, I think it's prudent to be revising and to be reassessing on if there's something that we should be internalizing and when to choose to go to another organization or outsource it versus building a capability. So I think it's good that we think about it and always look at contracts of this size and have that discussion.
I mean, I just see this as a huge investment in moving our mission forward, our values forward, our priority results forward. I think sometimes you know, I absolutely agree with the measurements, but I also believe that, you know, sometimes you don't have the expertise, you're struggling with that. That is what we're struggling with as the district. So, and it's been, like I mentioned before, I mean, this has been like decades and centuries of kind of inequities happening within, especially the school system. And so I think that this is just it's an investment. That's how I look at it. And I think that we need to also invest. Also be financially responsible, but this is just really the right thing to do right now, and I really believe in it. So.
Yep. Oh, and I think with our vote, we will vote to approve that investment. So all in favor of the contract between ISD 279 and National Urban Alliance, please say aye.
Chair?
Oh, do you?
May I
Sure.
make a comment before we? I just want to speak as a teacher and a school board member that sometimes having an outside voice is important. And so just to keep that in mind when we're thinking about doing everything in-house, sometimes a district, much like a family, gets its own culture, and sometimes we need to have a little infusion of outside culture to help us do better and be better for all of our students. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Okay, and, you know, I came from the consulting background where the majority of what we tried to do was leave the organization much more capable after our initial engagement than when we came in, and not coming back every year after year after year doing the same thing. So we want to build the capacity, you know, we want to build the capacity internally. And as we continue to invest, we need to take a hard look at how we're doing that. We need to do it without a doubt, but we need to, you know, get our own team looking at that as we've been doing this now for 3 or 4 years. Without a doubt, we need to do it, and as you said, we've had outside eyes on it now for several years, and we need to internalize that and continue to grow it organically, you know, within our system. Any other comments? With that, all in favor of approving the contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. With that, next on the agenda is an informational item, first reading of policy 506, student discipline. Mr. Palmetier, will you please talk about the first reading of the policy?
The good news is tonight that I am actually here just to report very briefly with respect to first reading. There's only one policy on the agenda for first reading tonight. That's policy 506, student discipline. This policy is reviewed on an annual basis. So after review by the district's policy committee, no material or substantive changes were recommended for the policy. Only minor modifications are being presented for first reading tonight. First, a correction to a typographical error is proposed in paragraph 3 of the policy, and second, an edit to paragraph 4B is proposed to clarify that disciplinary action can also be taken for violations of district procedures, which wasn't specifically stated previously, and that's in addition to school board policies and building regulations. First reading begins a 4-week period for reaction to proposed policy changes by concerned groups or individuals. After a 4-week period, the school board may adopt or repeal or amend a policy after second reading. The proposed revisions to policy 506 are available on the school district website with the agenda for this meeting tonight. Comments on the policy discussed here tonight may also be directed to the school board or myself. Comments on these policies may also be provided online through the school board policies and procedures webpage located on the school district's website.
All right, thank you, Mr. Palmetier. Board members, any questions of Tim? No? Okay, our last agenda item is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:24 p.m. Thank you. Have a good evening.